County Emergency Management. Today is the 5th day of us meeting like this. Last Thursday, we held our first news conference in City Hall when press predictions quickly rose to dangerous levels, and we knew we needed to take action immediately. That's exactly what we did. After what this community experienced in the past, we knew it was our responsibility as a community to take this threat seriously and allow residents and businesses critical time to prepare. That day, we quickly assembled what information we had and invited the media and the public to learn exactly what we knew at that time. I believe our efforts to communicate with the public and to engage the public in preparing for this flood event has paid off in a variety of ways. We've had 3 very long, while also very short days to prepare. And now we're seeing why all this work was necessary. The Cedar River rose quickly overnight and will continue to rise. We are now well above major flood stage. We all know, and it's been reported, that this is the second largest and most significant flood event in the history of the city of Cedar Rapids. Our temporary flood system is in place, and crews will continue to work to monitor the system and reinforce areas where necessary. No members of the public have seen our temporary flood protection system, and that's given confidence to our community. But we also wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that permanent flood protection is critical to our future. We've made a number of moves and measures through good planning as well as implementation and execution of new infrastructure to protect our community. But permanent flood protection will be a necessary solution. In the meantime, we've constructed temporary flood protection based on the city planning process. There's absolutely no way that the city of Cedar Rapids crews and engineers and our partners could have constructed this system without good planning and preparedness. What I would say is that a permanent flood protection would exceed over $500 million. We're working on that long-term goal. The system that we've put in place, while well planned, is probably a $5 to $6 million system that was built over a 2-day period. So just keep that in mind. The reason that's important is that many things can happen along the way. Our crews will be working around the clock. We're concerned about potential breaches of the system. Again, we have our city crews as well as our partners such as the Corps of Engineers working to identify potential breaches in the system, whether that's leakage from our stormwater systems or a breach in the temporary walls or some other kind of breach. We're monitoring those situations, again, with crews around the clock to address those potential weaknesses in the system. But public safety is what's most important right now. So as you've all heard, there is an evacuation order. What we're asking for is that the citizens of Cedar Rapids stay away from the inundation area. If you're a resident of that particular area, please don't go back until you're given that advice by the city of Cedar Rapids, because again, anything can happen within this temporary system. We don't want a loss of life. We don't want injuries. So please take good precautions, protect yourselves, and protect your loved ones and your friends and neighbors by staying away from the inundation area until you receive further input. There are many, many people who take a lot of pride in what our city has done in such a short period of time. We thank you. The event by no means is over. The next hours will be absolutely critical, but we again have confidence that we've done a tremendous amount of work, a tremendous amount of planning, and we've come together as a community. And it's certainly our belief that we're going to greatly minimize the impacts on our city because of the hard work of this community. And we thank all of you. Again, while all the work we've done is not a guarantee that we won't experience flooding, we feel confident that we have done our very best to protect the city and will continue to work 24 hours a day to make sure we've done our best. One announcement that's important: the city does need sandbags, and we have a station set up, the old Kmart West facility, what's now the Mid-American Aerospace facility. If you're able to volunteer, we would very much appreciate you going to the old Kmart West facility, Mid-American Aerospace, and spending some time volunteering. These are sandbags for public facilities. When I say public facilities, for critical infrastructure that's needed to protect the rest of the community. So thank you very much for your assistance in that particular area. It's now time to introduce Jen Winter, our Public Works Director, who from an infrastructure perspective has been leading much of the work thus far to protect our city. Jen?
Good morning. Our engineers, crews, and our contractors worked very hard yesterday to finish building the system and get the system in place. And then we transitioned into a 24-hour monitoring of the system, which we will continue to do until the floodwaters recede. We still anticipate the river to reach 23 feet elevation. Major flood stage is 16 feet. We're currently sitting over 19 feet and rising very quickly. This will likely go on record as the second largest flood in the city's history. I need to stress the importance of the evacuation area. We have done our best to construct a temporary system to protect our community from this flood, but we need to remember what we have built is not a permanent flood control system. What we have built is a temporary system that we have constructed over a period of 2 to 3 days. We are taking precautions to ensure the safety of our staff, our contractors, and everyone else that is within this flood boundary to help us monitor and keep this system going. We have provided them with flotation devices, radios, and procedures for evacuation in case of a breach of the system. If we do have a major breach in the system, water could rise very quickly within these areas and create a very dangerous situation. It's important for everyone living and working within this evacuation area to understand the seriousness of the situation and to please evacuate. No one should be walking, biking, or driving within this evacuation area, and certainly no one should be near the barriers, climbing, standing around them, or being on top of them. You need to stay out of the evacuation area. Remember that you are not only risking your own lives and safety, you are risking the safety of others if you choose to stay within this evacuation area. In 2008, we had no fatalities. This is something to be proud of, but not something to take for granted. That said is the exception, not the norm, when these types of flooding events occur across the country. Every single city worker, from public works to public safety to finance and IT, are working very hard to keep our residents and property safe. I am asking that you do your part as well, and please stay out of our evacuation area. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Mark English, Fire Chief.
Good morning, thank you for coming. As you've heard from other speakers and you'll continue to hear, as a city and the resources, safety is our #1 priority. We cannot emphasize that enough. As stated yesterday, the incident management team was started up at 7 a.m. That's a 24-hour operation. That team is made up of most every city department working together to work out plans, responses, and mitigation for this incident. We also work directly with our partners at the Linn County Emergency Management Agency to help us with resources we don't have within the city. Our fire crews continue to respond to normal calls for service. We also have preparations made for water rescues and water-based operations. By that we've staged boats on the west side of the river, boats on the east side of the river. We've also moved one of our ladder trucks from the east side to the west side, so we have one on each side for quicker response. Waters are rising, so please remember to be safe and stay out of flooded areas. All of us cannot emphasize that enough. Remember the saying, turn around, don't drown. Don't walk through the floodwaters, don't drive through the floodwaters. 6 inches of water can knock you down. 2 feet of water can sweep your car away. It looks innocent, it looks shallow. Again, you don't know what's happening underneath that if the street's even still there. So no amount of inconvenience is worth your safety. As Jeff said and others have said, the city manager has said, stay out of the evacuated areas. We need to make sure those places are kept safe and they're free for operations crucial to maintaining and monitoring the flood protection systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fire Chief English. Now calling on Police Chief Wayne German.
Thank you. Good morning. Active patrols began in the evacuated areas yesterday, and they will continue until the threat has passed and residents are allowed back into the evacuated area. The National Guard has arrived. They'll be in place starting at noon today. We've also received assistance from the Iowa State Patrol, Mount Vernon Police, Department of Corrections, and the Cedar Rapids or the Eastern Iowa Airport Police. They're assisting with law enforcement activities. Animal control continues to receive pets, and they have the capacity to receive more. If you are evacuating and need to house your pet, please contact Cedar Rapids Animal Care and Control. Unfortunately, we've received a couple reports of scams that are occurring as a result of this very serious situation. I want to emphasize one of the scams that is being relayed to our residents is they are being contacted and advised not to secure their residence. This is absolutely untrue and false. We need to emphasize, please secure your residence if you're evacuating. Public safety will not attempt to force entry into any unoccupied or vacant homes. So again, this is a scam. We are encouraging and urging all residents, when you are evacuate, secure your homes. A second scam that has come to our knowledge is that residents are being contacted by telephone and offered a free hotel room, and they are being asked to supply their credit card to make that reservation. Again, this is a scam. Do not fall for this scam. Do not fall for what these predators are trying to take advantage of our good citizens. Do not provide that information to these scam artists. And lastly, Route 380, the Department of Transportation has made arrangements that the inside lanes will be reserved for emergency vehicles only. What I would encourage other motorists to do is please do not slow or stop in the area of the Cedar River to look, observe, or take photographs. By slowing your vehicle or stopping, you are placing other motorists at great harm and risk. So please do not stop. Please continue to travel safely on the interstate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. We're now getting to our utility portion. So we'll have Steve Hirschner come up and then representatives from Mid-American Energy. The Mid-American representative is Brian Gibbs, and also Doug Koppel, representing Alliant Energy. Start with Steve.
Good morning. Our water systems are currently operating normally given these circumstances. We are seeing some slightly reduced pumpage because a number of our large industrial customers are offline currently for the flood conditions. Water pollution control is seeing very high influent operations. We're seeing in excess of 110 to 120 million gallons per day. Our flood protection system is operational and working very well at this time. Again, I can't emphasize now as we approach the flood crest that we use and discharge water as wisely as possible. We should not put either of these systems under stress. Appreciate your efforts in that regard. I have some other comments. First of all, we've been getting some questions and talk from residents about dam operations. I'm referring to the 5-in-1 dam in the bridge over the Cedar River. All gates on the dam have been completely open since Friday at noon and have remained open completely since that time. Visually, this can be difficult to see because the 4 middle gates actually, when they're completely open, submerge into the riverbed. We have an additional 5 gates on either side of those that are slide gates that when they lift, they're completely out of the river. So there's 2 different visual aspects to what it takes to be completely open for those 2 different gates. We know that that may be difficult to understand. The city does have a short video on our website that explains the details of the 5-in-1 dam operation. I encourage interested residents to observe that video to learn more about the 5-in-1 dam. From a solid waste perspective, we are already getting questions about how to dispose of sandbags. At this time, we are not able to answer that question. A great deal of that depends upon whether the sandbags at your residence or business are impacted by floodwaters, actually come in contact with floodwater. If they do not come in contact with floodwater, those sandbags can actually, the sand in them can be reused for a number of uses. So we will see, and a lot will depend upon whether or not the bags become wet. Right now, we're going to focus our efforts on flood protection. Once that work is done, we will provide information on what can be done with those sandbags and move as quickly as possible to assist our residents in that regard. As a reminder, garbage will not be collected in the evacuated areas at this time. Regular service will occur in all other areas of the city, and we'll provide more information on how we'll work with our customers in the evacuated areas next week when we hopefully can get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Doug Cobb from Alliant Energy.
Thanks, Jeff. Excuse me. So let me start with just a repeat a short safety message. And you've heard it here today, and you heard it from me over the last few days. I want to remind you, electricity and water do not mix, so please do not rush into water areas. Avoid them and keep yourself safe. Just a couple things I want to talk about today. First of all, at Alliant Energy, we have executed our flood preparation plan. So we've done what we can to this point. We believe we're in pretty good shape. I've talked about that a little bit over the last few days. I want to just emphasize that we're in a spot where we're now ready to execute with any disconnections that may need to occur. Let me talk a little bit about that process. I talked about the process yesterday. I want to go into a little more detail today about how we'll approach this. So when we looked at the prospective flood levels, we identified and planned for those low-lying areas that are most likely to be affected. And we have positioned crews to be able to address those as appropriate during the course of the flood event. So we have actually, and Palo is a good example. So those of you who have heard about what happened in Palo, let me share this with you and reiterate our philosophy. So we sent crews to Palo. We know that was going to be exposed early on in the process. We sent crews to Palo. They were there all last night. We sent them at the time that we thought the risk existed that we might have to disconnect. Our good judgment on the part of our frontline people, they understand the value of having power on, the sump pumps and other things. They delayed, they waited all night. They want to do it at the last possible moment. So I want to reassure people that we're not just looking to go out at a certain time and turn off the power. We're trying to be as victim-friendly as possible in this situation where we're waiting to the very last minute. So I want to reassure people about that so that you're aware that we will work with you as much as possible. That's all I have, so thank you, Jeff.
Okay, Mr. Gibbs from Mid-American Energy.
Good morning. We'd like to start out by thanking our customers for working with us over these last few days. Your patience and understanding has really helped us to do the work that we must do to get ready for this high water. We would also like to take a moment to thank our Mid-American employees who have worked day and night to help us in our efforts to protect not only our customers, but also our natural gas distribution system as well. We appreciate that customers within the Cedar Rapids evacuation zone have been so helpful and accommodating as we have temporarily cut their natural gas service to protect them from floodwaters. Please be advised that emergency management personnel will not allow us to enter a Cedar Rapids homes that have been evacuated. When re-entry is permitted, Mid-American Energy will dispatch an employee team to the area as soon as possible to restore natural gas service. At that time, Mid-American crews will need residents to provide access to properties to relight appliances. If there is no damage to the equipment, Mid-American Energy crews will immediately restore service. It is very, very important to understand this. Gas appliances that have been flooded must be repaired or replaced by a qualified contractor. If the past is any indication, some homeowners will resist the need to repair or replace appliances that have been affected. But we cannot emphasize enough just how important it is to ensure the safety of you and your family that you repair or replace gas appliances that have been flooded to ensure their safe operation. As always, safety should be your first consideration. Don't start up any heating, cooling, or other appliances or equipment that has come in contact with water. Serious damage or life-threatening injury can occur. Homeowners in the affected area should hope for the best, but also prepare for the worst. Additionally, floodwater can cause structural damage to a building. If the building has had structural damage, all gas piping must be checked and pressure tested by a qualified contractor to ensure the system is gas tight. Mid-American Energy has disconnected service to more than 1,600 Cedar Rapids properties. Once floodwaters recede to a safe level, we can start to work to make repairs and restore gas service to our customers. That effort is expected to take several days. Keep in mind there is no charge to restore natural gas service that was disconnected due to flooding. Once the flood threat has passed and we can re-enter the evacuation zone, Mid-American Energy will contact customers to let them know that we can begin restoring service. If a property does not sustain damage, we will need access to the building to restore gas service and relight pilots. If access is not available, Mid-American Energy staff will leave a door tag with information asking customers to contact us to set up an appointment for service restoration. For properties that are inside the evacuation zone that were not affected by floodwater, Mid-American Energy will proactively restore service to properties once water in the area recedes. One final safety reminder: when re-entering a property, be aware that natural gas lines, as well as electric lines, can be hiding in water and flooded buildings. Do not enter an area if you smell natural gas, which has a very pungent, rotten, egg, or skunk-like odor. If you smell natural gas, leave the area immediately. Do not use a cell phone until you have reached a safe location. And then call Mid-American Energy at 1-800-595-5325 to report the odor. We thank you again for your patience and your cooperation as we work through our flood plans, and we'll continue to provide additional updates as they become available. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. For the rest of this press conference, we're going to call on Mayor Ron Corbett. We'll then have opportunity for question and answers from the public as well as our media. And then we'll lastly introduce other partners, such as representative from the Red Cross, as well as Lynn County Emergency Management. I'd personally like to acknowledge a number of individuals in the room. We're not going to name everyone because we've got a lot of work to do today. We want to facilitate this meeting. But our state of Iowa partners, and we have a number of senators and representatives in the room today, have been absolutely critical through this challenging time in Cedar Rapids. We also have representation from the federal government, from our senators and congressmen, and we appreciate that representation and assistance. And lastly, Lynn County serves as a critical partner to our community, and we appreciate Lynn County's interaction and constant assistance and expertise. Behind me is the mayor and city council members. Our elected officials, our mayor and city council members have provided strong and vital and important leadership through this critical time. I know that I deeply appreciate that, and our city staff members appreciate it, and mostly as a critical link to your community, the community appreciates the interaction and the engagement of our mayor and city council members, again, during this challenging time. So thank you from me and from the city staff and the community. Now I call on Mayor Ron Corbett.
Thank you, Jeff, and good morning to everyone. It has been an amazing 4 days. There are no words to describe the response from this community. All I can say is thank you. But it hasn't just been the community of Cedar Rapids that has responded. So many communities around eastern Iowa have lent their support, equipment, sandbags to our effort. Thank you for that. Thank you for your concern, and thank you for caring about Cedar Rapids. And as mayor, much of my time and energy has been focused on Cedar Rapids, but I'm not blind to what's going on in other towns around eastern Iowa. Towns that may not get all the attention that Cedar Rapids has received. I've seen your pictures, and I've seen your devastation. And people tell me all the time, our thoughts and prayers are with you. With all the other communities around eastern Iowa that have been damaged and didn't have the time to prepare like we did, our thoughts and prayers are with you. It's crunch time in Cedar Rapids. The next 48 hours are the most critical. The next 48 hours are the most dangerous. And the next 48 hours, we need 100% cooperation from the citizens in both the evacuation area and outside the evacuation area. The execution on this temporary flood system has been phenomenal. 9.8 miles of HESCO and earthen berms have been constructed in a 2-day period. 250,000 sandbags have been put around this city to protect homes and businesses. And this execution has given us all a quiet confidence. We have this confidence that we've done everything we can humanly do. But I want to make sure this confidence that we have doesn't let our guard down during this most dangerous period. If it works, we will have saved the city. If there's a breach or a compromise in the system, we have a secondary line of defense. That's the sandbagging defense that everyone has been working so feverishly on the last several days. But it's a dangerous situation when there's a breach. You've seen pictures on TV of other berms or levees that have breached and the gushing of water that comes out. It's different than a rising flood water that maybe creeps up inch by inch, foot by foot. If there's a breach, the gush, and anyone standing or on a bicycle or in a car doesn't stand a chance. That's why the evacuation is so important. We think estimates are about 50% of the people left by last night. And we think a few more people stayed the night and left this morning. If you're listening to this press conference now or throughout the day, and you're in the evacuation zone, we ask you to please leave. We're not going to force anybody out, but we're asking you to use common sense at this point in time. Don't put your life in danger or the lives of the emergency rescue people, their lives in danger. They have families too. They have homes too that they want to go back to. So take your suitcase, take your gym bag, put in your medications, your toiletries, and let's move out for a few days. If all goes as planned, people will have access to their residence probably sometime on Saturday. And if it exceeds expectations, maybe even sooner. But please, we need everyone's cooperation during this critical 48-hour period. We've worked too hard over the last 4 days. We've come so far in 4 days. We don't want to see any loss of life during this critical time period. So please, if you're in the evacuation zone, go pack up the suitcase right now and head to higher ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Corbett. Okay, we'll take this opportunity to answer any questions from the public or the media. Mr. Hermanson.
Are there any areas of the flood wall or infrastructure that you guys think are especially vulnerable right now?
I'll let Director Winter address that, but what I will say is we have crews, experts, not just at the city level, but also through the Corps of Engineers, as well as the manufacturer of the temporary flood wall system and other experts from the private sector consulting groups that are working with us and monitoring the system in its entirety. So as we see potential areas where there could be weakness, we are attempting to address those immediately. Certainly through the evening and the dark hours, we'll work around the clock. We have lighting systems, but it gets even more difficult. Director Winter.
The question was if we see any vulnerable spots in the system, and just to add on a little bit to what Jeff said, at this point in time, the system is holding well. We've had a few manhole plugs come loose that crews are currently working on reinforcing, but other than that, at this time, the system is holding.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I've got a couple questions. First
Take
of
them
all,
one at a time.
Yeah. What is happening with mail that is addressed to flood-affected areas?
There's a question regarding what has happened to mail from the U.S. Postal Service that's coming to flood-affected areas. I can tell you I live in a flood-affected area and I haven't received, I didn't receive mail yesterday, so that would be the quick answer. I think it's being saved at the post office, and as soon as it's safe, just like with other emergency workers, the mail will be back on schedule when safe to do so. Is there anyone else that has input on that? So, okay, thank you. Next question. Did you have another question? Yes.
Yes. We had a viewer asking if the city would be providing assistance for residents with follow-up paperwork if they are affected by any damage.
So it's a question after whatever flooding occurs, there's going to be a need for follow-up paperwork, whether you're a business or a homeowner. And we do have a liaison that will be working at the City of Cedar Rapids. One of our employees will be leading this effort, and we will make sure that we're coordinating those efforts, that paperwork is complete. We'll also be calling on a team of volunteers to assist in that paperwork as well.
And I'm sorry, and it was specifically asking about interpreters, assistance with interpreters for any residents that might need that.
We will have that available, yes. The question was if there's an individual that needs to have an interpreter service, will we have that available? And again, we have a liaison at City Hall, Jasmine Almorad. She'll be heading that effort up, working with volunteers, and we'll make sure that we have the resources available to address those needs after the flood. Yes?
I'm a resident, and I know I come from Mid-American Field yesterday when I came down here, and I'm right down here on 10th Avenue Southwest, I'm 3 blocks from Taylor, and yesterday somebody helped me determine on the map that I'm pretty clear. Mid-American called me back, said they're not going to cut me off, but today I got cut out all 8 down there. My side street is pretty high thing. And I'm thinking about after the paved route to load up my cat and just go for a while. Should I have my electric and my gas shut off to be prepared and I'm telling my TV and stuff? But yesterday I was pretty well assured that I wasn't going to get hit, but I just was being, precautionary.
So this is a resident that is trying to be extra cautious. The resident lives outside of the inundation area, but has a concern about gas and electric. And so, my advice would be to call the gas company and call the electric company and shut off those services if you think that's best for you, and I'm sure they would be willing to assist you. Safety is critical, and we want you to feel comfortable, and so I think that would make sense for you. Other questions? Okay. I did have, I said that I hadn't received my mail, and we did get information from the U.S. Postal Service, and mail can be picked up at the West Post Office on Wiley Boulevard. So mail is waiting for you, and if you need to get your mail, go ahead to the West Post Office. If not, when the situation improves, we'll, I'm sure, start receiving mail on a regular basis again. Yes?
Michael Kiefer with Congressman Blum's office. I understand that federal funding was talked about for a permanent flood solution. The $73 million that was already authorized and approved by Congress is now awaiting to be put in the president's budget and to get a higher priority. Congressman Blum's office has been working with Congressman Loebsack's office to write letters to both the Army Corps of Engineers, the House Energy and Water Development Appropriations Subcommittee, as well as the White House. All those letters have been written, and just on Friday, Congressman Blum and Congressman Loebsack both proposed an amendment to the Water Resources Development Act of 2016 to higher prioritize that funding for the Cedar Rapids Flood Project. So I just spoke with our Chief of Staff this morning, and we will be finding out later today whether that will receive a vote on the floor. So hopefully, if that does receive a vote later this week, we'll have some more good news to share with you. But just want to give you an update.
So as a representative of Congressman Blum's office, talking about continued efforts to secure dollars for the Cedar Rapids permanent flood protection system. Obviously, this is an issue that the city has been working on since 2008. We appreciate all efforts to assist the city. This is a top priority for the community, and it will be important that as whatever legislative efforts move through the process, that we receive authorization as well as appropriation, because appropriation is where the dollars are, and this needs to be worked through the President's budget as well, starting, of course, with the U.S. Congress, with the House and the Senate, and along the way, because of the formulas, there's going to be a lot of work necessary in order to get these dollars not just authorized, but also appropriated. I'm also, along with the mayor, meeting with Colonel Baumgartner today. The colonel represents the U.S. Corps of Engineers, and they're obviously a critical partner in prioritizing the Cedar Rapids project as well. So it is a top priority, and we appreciate all efforts to assist the city of Cedar Rapids, because we don't want to be going through this and spending $5 to $10 million of taxpayers' dollars in order to protect this city again in another decade or whatever such a situation would occur again. In order to properly protect our city on a permanent basis, we do need long-term flood protection, which has been a goal of the city. We've received very significant support from the state of Iowa. The city has expended large amounts of money to protect itself and is ready to get moving on the permanent flood protection system. And the federal portion is what remains. And again, we do appreciate all efforts. This is serious, and we cannot let Cedar Rapids flood again in the future. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, yes, one more, and then we'll introduce our partners. Excuse me? Chief, you want to address the National Guard? Basically, they're going to make sure that our city is safe, whether that's making sure that those individuals who attempt to enter the inundation area have actual public safety reason to be there. They'll be in the neighborhoods to protect our citizens. We have a number of citizens who are vulnerable, that they've left their homes. We want to make sure that all their property and possessions are secure. And as the situation potentially gets worse and escalates, they'll be in Cedar Rapids to make sure that we continue to operate our community in an orderly way. They'll, of course, be working with all partners, most importantly our CRPD. Chief German, do you have a comment?
No, sir, it covers it quite well. The National Guard is going to be deployed beginning at noon. They're going to be managing the traffic control checkpoints throughout the city to, again, verify that what persons are allowed into the area, and assisting the police department, who will also be working in tandem with them.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief German. Any other questions? Yes, one in the back. Yes, Randy. So when things can get back to normal? Jen, as far as, right now, obviously, we're kind of in the middle of this. We don't know exactly. We will certainly get back to public information as to when we can get back to normal activities as quickly as possible. One of the main questions that I've received from businesses is, when can we get back operating again? We know time is money, and businesses need to get back into operation so we don't have even greater losses from a business perspective. So that is our goal and our effort that we'll be getting into. Just met with a couple of businesses yesterday to talk about that very thing. So again, the question was, after the crest, when can we get back to normal? Do you have anything more you can add, Jen?
Well, right now our sort of mission critical stage is 18 feet to 18 feet, which is actually a couple of feet over our 16-foot major flood stage. And we expect it to go down under 18 feet sometime Thursday morning. Below major stage would be below 16 feet. That's not expected to occur until sometime on Saturday. So I would say there won't be much of a sense of normalcy starting until probably at least Saturday.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, again, we appreciate the public being here. We appreciate very much the media helping us get the word out. They've been tremendous partners for us. And at this time, I want to introduce a couple of our other partners, very important, the American Red Cross, Peter Tian, and then we'll conclude with Mr. Goldberg representing Lynn County Emergency Management. Thank you very much for being here. We will be having another press conference tomorrow morning, this location, at the very same time, 10 a.m. Thank you.
Good morning. The American Red Cross is a proud partner in supporting flood operations here in Cedar Rapids, Lynn County, and all the way up the Cedar River Valley, all the way up to northern Iowa. Red Cross is classifying this as a major response, and we're currently flying in Red Cross responders from around the country to support the flooding operations throughout Iowa. So you'll see an increasing number of Red Cross vehicles and personnel who are standing by to meet the emergency feeding and sheltering needs of the public. We currently have 2 shelters open. One shelter is at Cedar Hills Community Church. That's on Stony Point Road and E Avenue. The other is St. Paul's United Methodist Church on 3rd Avenue East. Residents, the population in those 2 shelters last night was 87. We have a large capacity at both those facilities. So if you've not evacuated yet, if you've not found a safe place to spend the nights, please come to the Red Cross shelters. There's a safe and secure place. You'll be able to sleep, get emotional and physical support, as well as food and care. So don't endanger your families, come to a Red Cross shelter. We want you to keep in touch with your family and friends, and you can do that by using our Safe and Well program and accessing that through redcross.org, either on your iPhone or on your website, so we encourage you to do it. In addition to the physical care of our families, we're also concerned about the emotional well-being of the people we serve. And as we've heard, this response has been going on for several days. As I go around town, we're finding a lot of exhausted people who are just well spent. We want you to start taking care of yourselves, both physically and emotionally. A lot of us are working on very little sleep, a lot of junk food. We've spent all of our adrenaline, and now what we get is we're getting so close to seeing the fruits of our labor here, protecting the city, is that we can start seeing careless behavior, recklessness, people being confused, accidents, an increase in accidents. So we want you to, take time to take care of yourself. Self-care is very important. A lot of people are reliving the memories and the fears of '08, and that's to be normal. A lot of people are getting angry and frustrated, short-tempered. That's a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. And you can help yourself by doing simple things of eating right, getting a little bit of rest, if talking about your feelings with your friends, maybe journaling, writing down what you're feeling so you can kind of get it in writing and look at it later on. You might also want to just go for a walk, or just stop and take 5 deep cleansing breaths and just get the good feeling back inside. And just pay attention to how you're feeling, physically and emotionally, because we're almost to the end here. And we've got a long ways to go once the flood water goes down, as far as people moving back into their homes and their businesses, and we reestablish the normalcy within our communities. So we've got a ways to go. Red Cross will be here to continue the fight with you and to support you, and we thank you for all your help.
Mike Goldberg, Lynn County Emergency Management Director. The Emergency Operations Center has been on 24/7 since yesterday, and with the anticipated crest in 3 of our member jurisdictions within the next 24 hours, all happening about after midnight, we will continue to staff up and support our incident command centers at those locations. The Palo is, I think, the first expected to crest, and then Central City at the Wapsie. They are ramping up their operations. They've been sandbagging and they're putting those in place. The waters are rising fairly quickly over on the Wapsie at Central City. And then Cedar Rapids will be tomorrow morning sometime. According to the Flood Prediction Center, the water is moving at a slower pace, so it may take a while to get here. But as you've heard, once it gets here, it'll be here for a while till it clears out. Our special needs registry that we maintain at Emergency Management, over the last couple of days, they've contacted 65 individuals who are on the People with Disabilities or other functional needs lists, and make sure they have what they need or check to see if they need any assistance. So far, they do not need any assistance. We feel fairly comfortable that they are aware of the situation that is coming up. The shelters, I think Peter mentioned, count at Cedar Hills was 67 this morning, and St. Paul's was 19 at the shelters. Palo has evacuated about approximately 43 of 106 have voluntarily evacuated out of their residences in Palo. The thing that we are monitoring closely now around the area are the other highways in the area. We have a concern, and the DOT is monitoring it, that Highway 1 Cedar River Bridge will be impacted by the water. That would be the first that will be impacted. There is still some possibility that Highway 13 will be impacted. That would be the second, and then the third would be Highway 30. Highway 30 is less likely now than it was a few days ago, but again, we aren't quite sure, so please monitor the media for any restrictions that may be imposed on those locations over the next 24 hours. The next steps for emergency management is we are, again, working on the debris management program with the Solid Waste Agency, and also convening the damage assessment teams to be able to coordinate the information that we need to forward up to the state that would be in support of a possible presidential declaration. All damage assessments go through the Emergency Management Agency. So that's what we have going. Again, reminder, with the governor's proclamation of a few days ago, individual assistance program was initiated with that, which means people that have qualified at an income level are eligible for $5,000 to help restore their situation. So that is run through HACAP, and as soon as impacted residences become identified, those individuals would be eligible. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Yes, we do have one other comment. Representative State.
There are residents are concerned about the city transportation system, the bus services change. They wanted if there was a plan for their move of the transportation center, or
Sure.
they can get a new schedule and route.
Assistant City Manager Fowler will address that.
We don't have transit services this month, the bridges are closed. So, we already announced no service today and tomorrow, and then we'll reassess, depending on as the water comes down. As soon as we get some bridges open, we'll be able to, have transportation. What Mike Goldberg just said about special needs folks who need, that service that is available, on a case-by-case basis, you can contact special needs on it as an emergency operation.
So if there's a special need transportation
Call 211.
request, call 211, and we will do our best to arrange for that. If it's regular transportation, that's suspended at least for the next 2 days. Follow the website, and we'll give more information there. Okay, good question, though. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for being here. See you tomorrow, 10 a.m.